I'm J.R. Todd, and this is The Skinny.
Hey, I'm Ron Capps, and this is The Skinny.
From Fathead Studios in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny. And what you don't see is Carl in the background giggling and laughing, telling us it's time to start the show once again. Rico Elmore and Ken Stout, welcome to The Skinny. And we've got a couple of big guys that are going to join us here today. NHRA superstars, both of them are champions. Ron Capps is going to join us from California, the 2016 Funny Car Champ and the 2018 Funny Car Champ. Sitting in the studio, J.R. Todd. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, man. Thanks for having us.
Great to have you as well, for sure. And, of course, Capps, you've been doing this thing forever and ever and ever, man. Second winningest driver in Funny Car. That is quite an accomplishment. And as we kick off this sketchy 2020 season, it's your 26th year in the business. Did you ever imagine being in the business this long?
No. I was a crew member, and I was pretty much going to be okay being a crew member, even though I had aspirations to drive, growing up racing go-karts and riding motorcycles my whole life. But it was just that one moment where somebody had some faith in me and took me under their wing and let me get a license in their alcohol dragster. And much like JR, we kind of took the same path. And the cool thing for me is I can say I've done this for 20-something years, and I've never had to bring a sponsor or cash to a ride, which is rare in motorsports, period, but especially rare in drag racing. And to get that phone call for Don Prudhomme, that first time to go drive for him was one of those moments you never forget. And it just kind of set my path and my career. And here I am 20-something years later, still doing it.
That's it. Capps is dead to me. He's never had to chase a sponsor once. I don't even know who that guy is.
No, I've chased him. Believe me, I chased him. I've just never had to bring money for a seat.
So second winningest, we know who the winningest is. So what, Capps, if you run until you're about 90 years old, do you think you'll get, we're going to get him? Or?
Never happen. Nobody will ever pass John Force. And that's, I'm okay with it, to be second to that guy and what he's done throughout, really for the sport. He's kind of become a guy that I was just at the grocery store this morning, and some lady, she looked over at me and saw my racing stuff on. First thing she asked about was John Force, and she didn't follow it except maybe saw the reality show and then watched drag racing because of his daughters. But, he has been drag racing for a long time. And nobody's ever going to catch that guy. He has set a record that is astronomical and as far as wins.
And J.R. Todd, you're actually following right in suit. He's had an incredible career, and going along with that long career as well, 16 years with Don Schumacher is certainly nothing to sneeze at. Anytime you can stay with a team that long, and we were just talking with Scott Dixon. I think he's been with Ganassi for 19 years, but that relationship is so difficult to pull off. It's difficult to make it, but to pull off a relationship like that is really phenomenal.
Yeah, Ron talking, that none of us are ever going to catch John Force. Well, at the rate that Capps is going, he's not that old, and he's still kicking everybody's butt. It's going to be hard for some of us to even catch, the number 2 guy, which is him. And it's funny. I feel like he kind of gets aggravated or upset. Like you bring up stats that he's been doing it forever because, like I say, he's not that old. It's just that he wins a lot, and every year. So he's definitely set the bar high for us younger guys than him to try and catch him. He's definitely one of my heroes and a guy that I set out to be like. And we all know that we're not going to get 200 wins or what, John Force he's in a different category, and I don't want to race till I'm 70-something years old either.
Well, you might change your mind on that one. It's some of these young guns, you're a little ahead of yourself right there. You might be happy to still be doing it for sure. But and you look at John Force. I didn't mean to get off on the John Force tangent, but how do you not talk about the guy when you're talking about NHRA? And I agree with you 100%, Ron. But when you take a look at him, here we are, 2020. He's top 5 in the points again, and Brittany is already running best ever numbers. So, it's not like that team has even thought about laying down.
No, not at all. They got a heck of a brain trust over there between all their teams, and they work really well together. And it seems like every year, Ron and myself and the rest of us, we're kind of chasing Robert Height and Jimmy Prock and those guys, and that information, it spills over to Force's car, and you got a guy that's been around as long as he has, and that's a combination that equals success and wins. And like I said, he's still getting the job done at his age.
I'd love to get both of your thoughts on the head games that he plays at the starting line. I mean, to me, and other forms of racing, which is what my career's pretty much been made up of, it's games all the time. I mean, it's no different than somebody putting a bumper on you, driving you a little bit wide in a turn, maybe slamming the door on you. He rolls in the world of drag racing. He's like, game on, guys. I'm going to do whatever I can do to try to beat you. But I don't remember him doing it so much earlier in his career. He certainly plays those games now, and he does it really well.
Yeah, Ron's competed against him more than I have, so he could definitely tell you how far back he's been doing it. But I've definitely gotten a little taste of it, and it's not fun to be on the opposing end of those games. You have to know ahead of time that there's a chance he's going to do something. Just prepare yourself for it because it's bound to happen.
Is it all fair in love and war, Ron?
Yeah, I've had quite a few times. Forrest has been probably overall one of my better friends. He quit drinking and quit all that stuff after his bad wreck, but we've had a lot of good times. And he kind of took me under his wing when I was a rookie in Top Fuel. And then when I went to Funny Car, I went there with Don Prudhomme to beat John Force. That was the reason Don Prudhomme got that whole program together with the Copenhagen car. So back then, yeah, he still did it, but everybody did it back then. My rookie year and probably my first 4 or 5 years, man, I was rolling in, shutting top. I used to go in and try to flicker the top light off, which is not easy to do, and try to distract people and get them to red light. And that was the kind of games that was going on back then. But then it was guys like Al Hoffman and Chuck Etchells. And it was a different time of the racing where there's lots of times, even with John Forrest, where he messed with me, the star line, I've gotten out and gone almost to blows with him and pushing. And we had to be separated several times down there because he might've done it to me in qualifying where I don't think it should be done. It should be our cars out there trying to get our best run, not somebody playing head games and qualifying and trying to hang you out. So there's been times where, not that it wasn't PC, but you got out of the car and I was ready to throw down. And, it's just like a dirt race. You get somebody on a caution, there's a few laps left, and, you're running the pace laps and somebody comes up and gives the gas and just kind of goes up and shows you they're there, somebody to intimidate you. And it's that same type of thing. I just think Forrest doesn't have the confidence sometimes in himself that he can cut a good light, and he thinks he needs to roll it in, as we all do at different times to make our reaction times look better. But I think he would be just fine if he didn't. But it's gotten to be a sort of his badge of honor. And he messed with JR last year, and he got to him. He's done it to me in my career a lot, and he's gotten to me in my career when I was younger. So, you got to be ready for it. And it sounds easy. And JR knew it going in there when he messed with him last year, and you're ready for it. And you're like, I'm going to stamp this old man. And then the next thing you know, it catches you. And you're like, how did I let that happen?
Right.
Like, it's like you got Tony Stewart on the 2 laps to go on a caution. And he shows you a wheel and you're like, oh man, I got smoke next to me. What's he going to, and you're more worried about the opponent than you are anything else.
I remember back in the day, and it was a really big deal when you guys would hang each other out. The clutch would get a little too hot, and it'd go 1-to-1 the second you hit the throttle, and you knew you were going to knock them out of the race right off the bat. And boy, people were pissed at the other end. They were ready to throw down.
I'd say that's still the case. And like going back to what Ron said, in qualifying, someone does that to you. I mean, there's no rule that says that you can't do that. I mean, we know that you got 7 seconds to stage after the first guy does, but 7 seconds, that seems like an hour. Even if a guy takes 3 or 4 seconds, like that's too long, man. Like what were you doing over there? So if it happens in qualifying, you may let somebody know, but my opinion is like, I don't want to go show them that pissed me off. I'm just going to return the favor. Maybe not the next time I run them, but down the road, like when I put it in park next to them, like they might remember why I did that. Like that's kind of how I look at it. Like I remember Joey Saldana telling me that, a guy might flip him out of the park one night. And he's not going to go get in his face or whatever. But when that guy flips out of the park 6 months down the road, he'll remember what he did, to Joey a long time ago. So I kind of like tell myself that in drag racing, just think about it before you go say something. If you're going to say something, just put that in your memory bank and use it when you can.
Yeah,
it's kind of funny what Ron was saying about Stewart, showing a wheel. Well, remember him talking about Cruzman at the Chili Bowl for Tony's first Chili Bowl win. He was talking about how he goes, I know that I was holding you up because we had Cruzman on remote, and Cruzman's like, listen, I couldn't get to you, and Tony said he kept getting, showing him, and he's like, He's like, he's not getting by me. But,
Oh,
you know,
he said
it's
Cruzman was too nice. He said, you're too nice. If it was the other way around, he said, I'd have put a bumper on you. So it's a chili bowl. I mean, you got to go.
Why
you know?
not, man?
Speaking of Chili Bowl, Ron, you've ran the Chili Bowl, right?
Yeah, and speaking of fighting, I'll never forget the first year I ran it as a regular midget. It was on a team. Listen to the guys on this team. It was Danny Lasowski. It was Tony Stewart's team, but it was Danny Lasowski, myself, Kenny Schrader, and Josh Weiss. And all the cars, if you remember, they're all orange and painted the same. And, you know, that was cool to walk in that building and see my name on a midget with Kenny Schrader and Josh Weiss at the time was this new kid coming out of California. And of course, Dan Lasowski. I'll never forget the crew guys that he had working on my car. They nicknamed me Cooter, and they put it on the car instead of my name. They said, you get out there and don't let anybody mess with you. And if they do, you pull in the pits and leave your helmet on, and we'll take care of it. And so I'd always remember that.
Rules of dirt car racing. We were running sprint cars with my son for a couple of years, and we had the two mechanics that were on the car were big farm boys, man. And we never used a jack stand. They would just grab the front bumper and pick the front of the car up, look at me, and I would roll the stands underneath the car, you know. So they were the same way. It's like, if anybody wants to throw down, just make sure you get back here to the pits, and it'll all be just fine.
That's one thing I learned from my dad racing dirt track motorcycles. I was always small, and I'm still small. He's like, hey, man, if you ever get into it with a guy, like you're going to get into a fight, keep your helmet on. Do not take your helmet off because, you know, at least protect yourself. So that's one thing I always try to do, like go up to caps, keep my helmet on.
You know, all this stuff has happened over the course of your careers. You know, certainly, Ron, you've been around long enough. I mean, the fisticuffs things, I think, was a little more prominent back in the day than it is now. But when you take a look at what happened to Torrance at the end of last year, boy, it's really, I mean, they really crucified him over that thing. And I'm not saying he was in a good place to do that, you know, and he's certainly apologized for it since that time. But man, oh man, the fans really got pissed off about that whole scenario.
Yeah, you got to remember, and JR can attest to this, what our fans fail to get, what really motorsports fans fail to remember is Cup guys, they go around, you get the checkered flag, you've got 2 or 3 minutes to go around, do your burnout. By that time, you've kind of thought about what you want to say in your interview, you've relaxed a little bit. IndyCar, same thing, right? You win a race, you go around the pace lap, and you got time before you go to winner's circle. We make a run, 3.8 second run at 330 miles per hour. Who knows what's going on in the cockpit, especially a funny car. You're trying to manhandle this thing to the finish line, hoping you can get it between the cone and the wall of the finish line. Pull the chute, and within another 30 seconds, you're around the corner and you're getting out of this thing. And they've got Fox television cameras on you the minute you get out. So we don't have a lot of time. You talk about these, you know, fisticuffs and things in the past where I've gotten out. You don't have time to sometimes sit back and think, well, maybe I should think about this and go look at the replay. Maybe he didn't hold me up. And there's so many times I've gone and apologized to people later because I get out and I'm emotional when I'm going down the track and somebody held me up. I'm telling you, and Jay, I'll probably say the same thing. You're at half track and you're thinking, I can't wait to get out and knock this guy out. Like you're so upset and that's all you're thinking about. But not just that happening. I mean, we literally come around a corner, you pop out of the roof hatch and there are the cameras and somebody asking you your thoughts to what just happened where you've gone 6 Gs and then negative 9 Gs when the chutes come out. So all that emotions, you're tied into this thing, you're strapped in, this adrenaline's ready to pop out of the top of your head, and you don't have time to compose yourself. So I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. I think not enough credit's given to us in drag racing to where we don't get out and just start throwing blows sometimes or throwing up or, you know, or going after somebody or not saying the right thing. So it's tough. It's not as easy as it looks.
I agree because after that happened in Pomona with Torrance, you know, like I'm getting texts from, you know, my buddies, Kyle Larson, a lot of my dirt track friends are like, what the hell's wrong with you guys? You make a run down the track, you get out, you're mad at each other, ready to fight. Well, there's a lot that happens like the TV show doesn't cover. Like they might not analyze what happened on the start line, why this guy might be mad. They didn't go, you know, interview Torrance right away to see why he was mad. Just like Ron said, there's a lot that goes on, I'd say, in that whole 5-minute time from the time the car starts up till you get out the end of the track. And usually if they know you're mad, they're coming over to interview right away, camera in your face. And you don't really have time to even process what just happened on the run, let alone think about what you're going to say. And 9 times out of 10, the wrong stuff comes out of your mouth, or you might slap somebody.
You definitely would have thought that they would have learned from Stewart that that you definitely don't want to you don't want to get a hot mic on somebody a little too quick. When I always loved it, Matt Yoakum would walk up and ask him something. He's like, well, why the hell do you think I'm mad?
Right, common sense, man.
Yeah, Matt's big, and he's Stewart's friend, so he could have got away with it, right?
Yeah. Has JR got a guest with him now?
Where'd that guy come from? I promise I didn't bring this with me, Ron. I am not that guy.
We had to give him one. I mean, Ron's got 64 of them sitting behind him.
Yeah, but I don't have that one, that Indy one. That is the only racetrack that I've never won at.
Wow.
And I won there on Saturdays, and I've done it on Sunday when they had the Big Bud Shootout, but I've never won the big race on Monday. So appreciate you teasing me. I have a March Mate trophy, by the way.
Yeah, those are really hard to come by and rare to come by, and that's pretty awesome trophy. So congrats on that.
First African American to win in fuel, first African American to win in funny car, and both of you guys, one of 17 drivers to win in both categories. Some big credentials for both of you guys, and well earned, of course. Just talking about winning the U.S. Nationals, man, oh man, that's a big deal. And you talk to anybody in drag racing, and that rivals a championship. To win the U.S. Nationals rivals a championship.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what guy you ask. If they haven't won Indy or they haven't won a championship, but at the time when I won Indy, this was the biggest thing I'd ever accomplished, but I don't know if I would give up winning a championship either. I mean, that's something you would have to ask Ron. But yeah, I'd say, I don't know. A lot of the legends say their career is not complete unless you've got one or the other, and maybe both. So I'm very fortunate and lucky to have the one Indy twice and a championship. But you always want more.
And coming out of the junior dragster ranks, I mean, you are the true poster child of starting off at 10 years old, staying in there, running the course of time to 17 years old, coming out of it, getting your 890 class license, then going to Frank Holly's school. Thank you. You also were in an alcohol car for a little bit, and then up to the big ranks. I mean, you ran the whole gamut of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, there's definitely a few of us that took the road of the junior dragster path, what it was designed to do, to hopefully get you to the professional level someday. But it's really hard, just like any sport. I compare it to a kid playing Little League Baseball or Pee Wee football that makes it to the major leagues or the NFL. It's a really tough road, and I'm lucky that I met the right people along the way, and my parents sacrificed a lot for me when I was a kid to take me racing across the country to meet certain people and what have you, and just really worked at it even when I wasn't driving, became a crew guy just to show other teams out there that knew that I had driven in the past, hey, this is what I want to do. And at the time, I really didn't like being a crew member, but looking back at it, I feel like it's made me a better driver because I understand how the cars work and what goes into them. Just gives you a lot more respect for those guys, spending those long hours preparing that thing for you to go out there and tear it up in 3.8 seconds. But yeah, it's a few of us, like I said, are living proof that kids out there racing today, that you can take the path that we did if this is what you want to do, but it's going to take some work, and you got to stick with it for sure.
God bless Benny Knapp.
Yeah, man, that's where it all started for sure. I mean, it's pretty crazy to think, a little 5-horse Briggs and Stratton with a pull starter, basically something you could take off your lawnmower and put on this little almost go-kart chassis that's extended into a drag. So that's what it started out as, and we hauled mine to Edgewater Sports Park outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, in the back of my dad's truck for my very first race. I think it went 14 or 15 seconds at 40 miles an hour, and I thought I was hauling ass, man.
Great stuff. And you've had wonderful family support all along the way.
Yeah, absolutely, man. My mom and dad, they've been there from day one, and they still go to majority of my races today. And when they're not at the track, people are worried something's wrong. Hey, how are your parents? Where are they at? Man, they still got jobs back at home they got to go tend to. So yeah, they have a lot of fun, and it's nice having that kind of support. And from day one, my dad's told me, hey, I'm 100% behind you in this stuff, but if you ever want to quit, I'm 110% behind you. So it's nice to not have that pressure from my dad, my mom and dad to make this happen. They're always there no matter what I wanted to do in life.
Caps, you've done some other stuff. You've actually been in a lot of different race cars all along the way. Of course, everybody knows you for Funny Car and that great relationship you've had with Napa for so many years now as well. But we were kind of joking at the start of the show, as Screen Actors Guild, you've been involved with that. You were a racquetball player, which I was not aware of, to the point that you're in the open division back in the day. But what I like best, as we were talking about fisticuffs a little bit earlier, is you were a freestyle and Greco-Roman wrestler. So I'm thinking you and Gary Densham. I know Gary's a little bit older now, but he used to throw down as a wrestler as well, man. There could be a good little sidebar going on here.
Gary's got legs like an oak tree. That's a big dude. He was actually a power lifter, believe it or not. But yeah, I think wrestling for me growing up, through high school and the Greco and freestyle, it taught you a lot about life. It was one of the best sports I could have ever competed in. And so then teaching racquetball, I did that through college. That was my job, working at health clubs in the Bay Area, 3 of them. And then I played tournaments for money on weekends. So, but my aspirations are always to race. And I was going off on weekends and helping Blaine and Alan Johnson prior to Blaine getting killed. And so I've known those guys a long time, and it sort of worked out. But yeah, I always had the passion growing up, go-karting and all that I wanted to drive. And back then it was Indy cars, or sprint cars. Growing up in San Luis Obispo and Santa Maria, there was a great racetrack there in Santa Maria that's still there. And so going to watch the sprint cars and the dirt cars was it. So fast forward to getting to drive for Snake and then getting these offers to go dirt racing was a dream. And so another unique thing about me and JR, we both love racing dirt. I really enjoy watching when he jumped into Christopher Bell's car. I got to go test with IROC before that folded at Talladega and Chicagoland, which was cool. Had a blast doing that. So yeah, I've been real lucky to go do stuff that I love to do because of where I'm at in the drag race world and who I've driven for. So that part is, I love doing that.
So JR, give us a play-by-play on Christopher Bell's car. I think I know it, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was nervous as hell to hop in that thing. It's Keith Coon's Prepare Midget, and it's Christopher Bell's car. Like, this is Wednesday or Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday before the BC 39, which I thought maybe we'd drag out a couple spare cars for us to go out there and mess around. It was going to be Doug Coletta, Eric Jones, and myself. I'm like, nope, you guys are driving these cars, and Christopher's going to help you. Like, each driver had I think Logan Seavey and Tucker Classmar were the other guys helping. So getting that thing, and they're like, yeah, just, make a couple laps around till you get the hang of it, then, do whatever. Get out there and idle around for a couple of laps, and as soon as they say go, I pedal to the floor. That's what Larson and Christopher told me. Like, hey man, don't mess around on this thing. Like, get after it. Like, okay. So like 2 or 3 laps, like I'm on the fence, like dirt's flying everywhere. I'm like, oh shit, I need to back it down a little bit. Come back in. Keith's like, hey man, don't do that anymore. Like, I'm like, well, I really didn't mean to do that, Keith, but it made for a cool picture that I got hanging in my trophy room that they all autographed. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And to back up like what Ron was saying, I wish that I was a little older. My career got started a little, further back, so I could possibly do the things that he's done, like IROC and Prelude to the Dream and just different, outside of drag racing. Not that I would give up my day job, but I love the opportunity now to be able to go and drive things like Christopher Bell's car or a wing sprint car, just anything that I think can help me become a better drag racer, because I think all those things really do help.
Okay, Caps, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You can't drive for the Snake and not give us a good story, at least 1 or 2 good Snake stories. I mean, talk about legendary status. That guy, that cat is something else, and to have him behind the scenes and inside the trailer with you for years had to be remarkable.
What was always the best was sitting around at the end of the day when the racing was over and having legends in our hospitality area, having a beer and just listening to these stories that I might have read about or heard about and hearing it from the same people that might be hanging out there. Probably the first one that comes to my mind that I can remember was the first Snake just had hired me, and we went to SEMA show, and I was getting ready to drive the next year for him. And we ran into Mario Andretti, who was probably my biggest idol growing up. And next thing I know, we're going to this Italian restaurant that everybody would go to right near the SEMA event. And it was legendary. And we walk in there, and of course, the owner comes out, and he's got tears in his eye when he meets Mario, and they kiss each other on the cheek. We sit at the owner's table. we're heading back to the hotel afterwards, and I'm having these pinch me moments like, God, I'm hanging out with Dom Perdome. Then I remember I'm driving for the guy now who's one of my idols, and we're out to dinner with Mario Andretti. And I'll never forget, we're in the cab on our way back, and the guy driving was this old Italian guy, and I could tell Snake knew he was a big time Italian guy. And I just remember the guy didn't realize it was Mario Andretti sitting in the back, and I was sitting up front. And I just remember Snake telling the guy, "Hey man, he's talking about your driving," and he says, "Man, you drive like Mario Andretti." The guy goes on and on. "Oh my God, Mario Andretti is my favorite." And he does this whole thing. And then when we stopped, the guy tells him Mario's in the back of the car. And the guy got out and got on his hands and knees and just started crying in front of Mario Andretti. So moments like that were, for me, just, I'll never forget being able to be around these legends. But driving for Dom Perdome turned me on to a lot of those moments. And fortunately, I've got a lot of stories. Unfortunately, I can't tell most of the stories. Carroll Shelby ride to the airport with Snake after leaving Gainesville one time. I'll never forget that. If you ever met Carroll Shelby, you know what kind of guy that was. And that was probably 8 minutes of the most F-bombs and S-bombs I've ever heard in my life, of them telling stories of the old days. And, now that he's passed, and being able to spend that time with him and Snake, another one of those moments.
My God, I mean, I had goosebumps telling me that story about Mario Andretti. That's just incredible stuff. Yeah. Talk to me about how passionate and how competitive Snake was. When you're in the trailer, you're in the middle of the dogfight on a Sunday afternoon. Give me a feel.
It's all he's ever known to do. And I was told he's calmed down. I was told by AJ. I was told by Mario. I was told by Connie Coletta. All these guys said, "Man, it's a good thing you're driving for Snake now and not 10 years ago." Because he is as intense as you would think. He just feels like he's scratching for everything, like he was in 1963 when he first got his first job driving, or first chance to drive. And it's all he's ever known. He was a car painter, and he doesn't have, like a lot of these other owners, a big business at home where they run during the week, like a Penske or Don Schumacher, and these guys have all this other stuff going on. This is all he's ever known. So it's everything to him. And I mean, the smallest little thing, I learned how to dress. I learned how to pack clothes for trips, the minimal amount of things to pack. I learned how, when you're sponsored by a beer company at your dinner, when you finish that bottle of beer, and it was Miller Lite back then, you don't let them take the bottles away. You leave them on the table. If somebody walks by, you want them to see that you've been drinking Miller Lite. And just little things I never would have thought of as a kid, growing up. And when you got these big sponsors, and boy, he notices everything. He wants his scooters in front of the pit area lined up the way Roger Penske's scooters are lined up when you walk into his area at an IndyCar race. And just things that I have over the years kind of taken and put into my brain. And my wife laughs at me all the time. She calls it a snakeism. I'll say something or do something, or a mannerism I do will be something that she saw a Snake do. And it's instilled in me. And, you couldn't ask for a better person that hated to lose and was there in the beginning, and a guy that I played with his Hot Wheels, as we all did growing up. To have somebody like that to emulate and be around, it definitely was something that made my career what it is today.
He was talking about the beer bottles. My wife seems to get pissed when I leave them all over the table like that. But try to get her over that deal. Tell her it's a sponsor deal, but no, I mean, So
well, you shouldn't do with Bartles and James. I'm talking beer.
Yes. Yeah, so it's bottles of bourbon, actually. She's wondering why there's 3. But anyhow, I always laugh because Snake would be up on the line and JR was running. I think you were running at Lucas at the time. And, Snake would always say some of the craziest, like he always still does. I mean, he's definitely a shock factor guy, right? And he says, have you ever seen J.R. Todd and Lewis Hamilton at the same place? And I'm like, no. I'm completely baffled in where he's headed with this, right?
Well, I can see it right now. They're one and the same, man. You never see them in the same place.
And he's going on and on and on and on about, well, the last time I saw him was, at our late great friend Bill Simpson's suite. And I think I shared this with JR, but Bill always had, a good-looking blonde on his arm to the bitter end, literally to the bitter end. And you know, Snake and Bill, of course, growing up together as kids, you know, Snake would be down there. He knew every button to push with Simpson. And I mean, he mashed all of them with his feet, with his hands. I mean, he was driving him crazy. And I'm sitting down there watching it. And I said to Snake, I said, hey, Snake, I'm going back down to our suite. I said, stop by on your way out. He goes, I'll be down there in an hour or two. I'm like, oh, okay. So Bill's got one of his girls in there, and Snake's asking Bill. He says, Bill, how does she do it? And he says, what are you talking about, Snake? You know, he's irritated because Snake's firing him up again. And he says, how does she do it? He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. He goes, how does she keep it all in? Is it with Spanx or what does she wear? Simpson lost his day, threw him out of the suite. So Perdome comes down to our suite like about 15 minutes later. I go, what are you doing? I thought you weren't leaving for a couple hours. He goes, yeah, Bill threw me out. And proceeded to tell the story. So, but yeah, he's one of a kind, which, you know, that's, you know, you got people like him, you got people like Connie, you know, and some of these legends that were around forever. And, you know, we always talk about the health of motorsports, you know, when we're on here. And, you know, as we said, you know, every one of them needs each other. You know, NASCAR needs IndyCar. IndyCar needs, you know, the NHRA. I mean, if you're a race fan, yeah, there's different factions of it. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are just race fans, you know. And I love the NHRA. I mean, listen, if people have never went, if you watch it on TV, you can fancy it somewhat like hockey. You know, it's cool on TV, but it's nothing like being there. Exactly. You know what I mean? And, you know, the NHRA, you know, they've got the management there has some things in front of them they need to get straightened out, because it's about bringing a younger fan out there. It's about bringing a younger person out there that gets it, that's like, man, this is remarkable. And I think a lot of that feeds back into having trades in the high school and people getting interested in auto shop and, you know, the things that used to drive that sport. So, and I hope they do, because it's a badass sport, man. There ain't nothing like it.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Skinny. Be sure to check out all the latest sun and optical eyewear at fatheads.com. Special thanks to our sponsorship partners at Elliott's Custom Trailers and Carts. This has been a production of Fathead Studios. Please remember to subscribe.